This is WFYI News Now. It's December 11th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a team that responds to mental health calls expands to the north side. Indiana could face Medicaid coverage loss if federal funding is reduced under the Trump administration. And the state's largest teachers union has a long list of changes they want to see during the 2025 legislative session.
When we have talked with our educators through surveys, we know that wages and benefits is a key driver to them leaving the classroom, but we also know that these type of working conditions where they do not feel safe in their schools is another one that is driving them out.
Those stories are coming up, but first. A dozen charter schools in and around Indianapolis will be considered for renewal this week. 2 charter authorizers will hold hearings to evaluate whether each school can continue operating based on factors such as academic achievement and financial stability. The Indianapolis Mayor's Office of Education Innovation will hold public hearings Tuesday and Wednesday for 7 schools. Decisions will be announced in the next few weeks. The Indiana Charter School Board will meet and vote Thursday on renewal requests. Charter schools are tuition-free public schools managed privately by nonprofit boards rather than elected officials. The maximum charter school renewal term is 15 years. For more on this story, go to our website at WFYI.org. A team of civilians that responds to mental health calls in Indianapolis will expand in 2025. WFYI's Jill Sheridan has more.
When the clinician-led community response team started in 2023, it only reached people in IMPD's downtown district. This year, it expanded to the east side, and next year the program will expand to the city's north side. The city says since its start, it's been able to assist more than 600 residents. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett says next year's expansion is a chance to improve.
A chance to serve our residents better than we did the year before. And one thing that we commit ourselves to improving every year is the health and well-being of our community.
The North District expansion is in response to a greater number of calls and a general need for more mental health help in Indianapolis. It's funded through the Office of Public Health and Safety budget. I'm Jill Sheridan.
Indiana is one of 12 states that are vulnerable to Medicaid coverage loss if federal funding is reduced under the upcoming Trump administration. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports more than 750,000 Hoosiers would automatically lose health coverage if the federal funding dips below a certain threshold.
90% of funding for Medicaid expansion programs, like the Healthy Indiana Plan or HIP, comes from the federal government. When some states wrote their programs into law, they included what's known as a trigger law in case federal funding was reduced. Adam Searing is a research professor at Georgetown University's Center for Children and Families. He says these trigger laws can require states to end their expansion programs if there are changes to federal funding.
States like Indiana, it's pretty automatic. There's some limited review, but the expansion, if the legislature doesn't do anything, the expansion just goes away.
Searing says this isn't just a theoretical possibility. The Trump administration has already shown interest in reducing federal Medicaid funding. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
And for our final story today, the state's largest teachers union has a long list of changes they want to see happen for educators across the state. From WFYI's Education Desk, Rachel Fredette reports what union leadership will lobby lawmakers to act on during the 2025 legislative session.
Leaders at the Indiana State Teachers Association are concerned about educator injuries caused by students. The union wants districts who have not yet shared state-required data on these injuries to be given a penalty if they aren't compliant. They believe more school counselors and restorative justice programs for students could benefit campus environments. They want lawmakers to support that. Jennifer Smith-Margraf is the vice president of the union. She says teachers care about their paycheck and how they are treated on the job.
When we have talked with our educators through surveys, we know that wages and benefits is a key driver to them leaving the classroom, but we also know that these type of working conditions where they do not feel safe in their schools is another one that is driving them out.
The union also plans to ask lawmakers to increase teacher salaries to inflation-adjusted rates. I'm Rachel Fredette.
The legislative session begins in January. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.